Okay, I'll call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. And for anybody who's watching or seeing the recording, just to give you an idea, we're the Bloomfield Township Planning Commission. We're an appointed 7-member body that's an advisory to the Board of Trustees. And we, on matters concerning property and land usage. Tonight we have one item on the agenda. We have a full house here. We have everybody here this week, so that's good. And so we'll just get to the agenda. And first, I said we have attendance. We have a quorum, so we can do business. And you all got a copy of the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any corrections or changes or anything?
No.
Seeing none, I'm going to give a motion to approve it. Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving right to the agenda then. We're looking at an ordinance change, a modification of an ordinance for ground-mounted mechanicals and electrical equipment. So Patty, are you going to?
Yes, I am.
You are, okay.
And as we do not have any public, we will note that there's no public comment
I
for
do that,
tonight.
yeah, you're right. Well, there's nobody here, so, yeah.
And so, yes, so this is the public hearing. So last month, we introduced some ordinance amendments that we wanted to have the Planning Commission consider. Specifically, it was related to mechanical and electrical equipment. I gave a little history back about a year ago where we did amend the ordinance to reflect some changes to our ground-mounted and wall-mounted mechanical electrical equipment relative to all of our zone districts. Establishing specific terms, making sure that they are screened and that they are immediately adjacent to the building that they're serving and so forth. And after living with it for a year, we found that there were some areas that were in need of maybe further discussion and review. So we are proposing some amendments this evening. Whoops. I probably did.
She blew it up.
Is it the star?
No. Arrow.
Oh, arrows, okay. All right. Arrow, okay. So for the first part of the ordinance amendment, it's actually two parts. One has to do with the location of the mechanical units immediately adjacent to the building. As we know that they can be, they are permitted within the secondary front or the side or the rear, but we wanted to reference the location immediately adjacent to the building, and more specifically, its placement relative to access either for servicing or for air circulation. That we have found that working with contractors and our building inspectors, there was a consensus that there generally is a 3-foot separation between the building wall and the unit. And that seemed to be identified through the specifications that were always on the, as part of the permit or in the field, and the inspectors honored that 3-foot separation. Well, now we found that more recently, as the equipment is getting more energy efficient, thank you, or a little bit more, technically advanced, if you will, that some of the specifications have changed, or the fact that the unit themselves have gotten larger, or potentially some of the applications, but that their specification now is referencing 5 feet. So not wanting to have those types of applications go before a zoning board of appeals, because routinely they've been approved if that's been demonstrated by the applicant, that we actually reference now this 5 feet. So if I could have you turn to the ordinance, we did take into consideration the comments received by the Planning Commission at your last meeting and rephrase the section that we'll be adding. And I don't believe I have it on the, no, I don't. I don't have it on the screen. But if you reference within the agenda packet, on the first page of draft ordinance 678, you'll see the sentence that's underlined says, ground-mounted mechanical equipment shall be located immediately adjacent to the residential or non-residential building and have a clearance of no more than 5 feet from the building intended to be served. We changed that as input from Ricciotto as wanting to have it crystal clear that the clearance is not taking into account the width of the unit, but that it is actually a free and clear distance or clearance between the building wall and the unit itself, that it wasn't taking into account whatever width that unit might entail. So in showing the depiction of what that would entail, it really is now showing, even by an illustration, that between the building wall and the unit, no matter what application it may be in, whether it's the front, secondary front, or rear, that we're looking at a 5-foot max between the building face and the unit itself. Now, and that also does not take into account all the other requirements, such as the setback requirements that now are part of our ordinance, relevant to it being in a side yard, a front yard, secondary front yard, or in a rear. So the illustrations as part of the ordinance itself will be updated by our planning consulting team of Gibbles-Webster to depict the illustrations that now are found within our clear zoning ordinance. But for purposes of our public hearing, I wanted to at least show a depiction of what we're speaking of. So it still requires to be screened, whether it be a material match the building itself, or whether it's with vegetation screening, and that it be the minimum, up to the minimum setbacks as prescribed in the ordinance amendment that we adopted last year. And for examples of that is, here is a generator in a side yard. This shows where the blue arrow is. There's a proposed generator. It's 5 feet from the house. It's actually 19 feet from the side lot line. So it is ample within that 10-foot minimum requirement. And there's evergreen screening. So this is an application that went to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Here's another generator. This is in the side yard. Very similarly, the generator is in the side yard. There's 5 feet separation between the house and the unit. There actually is 10-foot side dimension from the side lot line, meeting that requirement, and there's evergreen screening as part of that proposal that was granted by the ZBA. And here's an example where there's a generator in the rear yard. It's 5 feet from the house. It is meeting that minimum 10-foot on the side yards, and there'll be evergreen screening. So the second part of the ordinance speaks to when ground-mounted mechanical equipment is proposed inside a structure that, especially as it relates to pool equipment inside a pool house, or sometimes there'll be a generator inside a detached garage. In both those instances, the township ZBA has routinely approved those because it's meeting the intent of having it screened, and secondly, oftentimes it aids in baffling, if you will, the sound, emanating from the equipment. And again, here's examples where we have a pool house in the rear. The pool equipment is proposed inside the pool house. The pool structure itself is compliant with the setbacks, and that was approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Here's another location, again, a pool house in a rear yard. It's located within the building itself, and it's compliant with the setbacks. You could interchange these examples with whether it be a detached garage and having a generator inside, or a transformer or some other equipment inside a detached accessory structure like a detached garage. The same would apply. And both of these sections of this ordinance amendment still acknowledges that the building codes have to be in full compliance. So that's why we have the building permit application and the permit inspection process. And that also that has to comply with the minimum decibel requirements of our noise ordinance, which is not exceeding 70 dBA. So we feel that the ordinance as it's presented will address these scenarios that have been routinely approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. I think at last meeting I referenced this would have removed 16 items from last year's agenda. We did have an opportunity to present this ordinance amendment in draft language to the ZBA, so I included in your packet at the end an excerpt from their ZBA minutes where the board was very supportive of the ordinance language, felt that it made sense to be, consistent and compatible, but yet at the same time, and I guess I stress this both to them as well as you, is that our real purpose is to make sure that these mechanical equipment location is immediately adjacent to the building it's being served. We don't want it located so that it's a hindrance or a nuisance to an adjoining property, that it's adjacent to either the residence or the building, or especially if it's non-residential, the commercial building, it's being served and not in a remote location. So we're still meeting that intent and that purpose, but we're being much more, we're recognizing that there is some opportunity to allow for these units to comply with the code as well as to meet our standards and still be screened appropriately to adjoining properties. So with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Anybody have a question or comment?
I do. Go ahead. Richie, go first, because you've done it more.
My only comment is thank you for adding the word clearance, because it makes it much more, clearance makes it much more clearer.
Andrea?
Thank you, Patty. I think it's a great proposal, and the ZBA did have great things to say about it. It was at the end of the agenda, and I've had an opportunity to kind of think about it a little bit, and this doesn't have exactly the change in the proposal, but the 70 decibels, is that from standing at the unit or standing at the lot line, or is there a certain?
It's measured 25 feet away from the unit.
Okay, I just was curious.
So that way then, because of setbacks and locations and sometimes deficient setbacks, the measurement is taken 25 feet away from the unit itself.
Do we actually measure that?
We do. When there's a complaint, we do, and as well as the inspectors will. The contractor is obligated to make sure that they comply with the DB in the manufacturer's spec as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I had a question
Yep.
on the graphic. Pull the graphic. I tried to resolve it before I came.
So this is my version of a graphic. The graphic that you have as part of your packet is presently the illustrations that are in our current ordinance. They have yet to be updated.
Okay.
So if that helps you,
I have no
okay.
question.
There you go, good, thank you for that, yes. Not having the 3D imagery that Giffords Webster's have, I had to use a 2D version, and
So the 10 feet on the left and where you have maybe an adjacent property side yard, the 10 feet minimum required side setback would be to the unit.
yes.
Screening can be beyond that.
Exactly. In that instance, vegetation can fall within that minimum 10-foot setback. If you wanted to put up a masonry wall because your house was masonry. So that's the depiction on the opposite side.
Right.
But actually that's a secondary frontage, but still trying to say that if you wanted to have a masonry wall to go with your masonry home, that wall still has to honor that minimum setback.
Right.
So it'd be 10 on
The
one
old
side or
graphic with the
30.
6-foot max just doesn't.
Right.
you can't
Yes.
Look at the equipment. It just-
Yes, yes. And this is a circumstance that might not work in, at every location, but again, it's providing one more opportunity for our property owners to be able to comply with the ordinance and not have to go to ZBA if it's meeting, the spirit of the ordinance.
Thank you.
ZBA should be celebrating.
We are.
Well,
That's why they liked it so much.
So the
workload in half.
look at Andrea, yeah, she's just
evergreens
thrilled.
can encroach on the 10-foot setback, but no masonry wall can.
Correct, but vegetation, sure.
Landscaping. Anybody else? Okay, then I'm going to open it up, for the record, open it up for the public hearing. There's nobody in the audience here, so I guess we'll just close the hearing and bring it back to the commission. And any other comments or a motion?
It's been changed, it's been accepting, I think. I would move approval.
Support? Moved and supported? Okay, and all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so it goes forward to the Board of Trustees as you have submitted to us.
Yes,
Good,
thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, general business, items not on the agenda. I just want to make one comment. I want to give a compliment, high compliment to our planning department. I had an issue with how we interpreted an ordinance, the special events ordinance. I don't want to go into the details of it, but I thought something was very wrong with it. And within a few days, they got back to me and corrected it and agreed with what I had to say and changed the way we interpret it. Now, I don't know how many other communities, and tonight, with this, it's like a living document. We update it, when we find something. But how many other communities are there that can do that without coming back and say, that's the rule, follow it, or too bad, So I wanted to give a high compliment to our planning department, Andrea,
Thank you.
Patty,
Yep,
for
Andrea.
doing that, for getting on those things, so, that's all.
It's also
Just-
good to be chairman.
What?
It's also good to be chairman.
Yeah, I guess so.
They'll answer your emails.
Very
Okay,
good.
anyway, anybody else have anything?
Thank you, that was nice.
Well, then guess what? I think we set a new land speed record. Good.
No, we had a 7-minute meeting once,
Oh, okay.
and Doc took us all out to eat.
All right, so April 1st is the next meeting. Do you think do you have anything up yet for that?
We do not.
All right, good.
It's April Fool's Day.
Maybe that's it.
Okay, we need a motion to adjourn then, I guess.
So moved.
Moved and,
Second.
boy, oh boy. Very good, thank you very much.
efficient.
Thank you
Right
very,
through
very
that
much.
agenda.